You know, I'm out here fighting Devin Haney. I'm out here fighting fucking Tank Davis. Now I'm about to fight Teofemo.
Ryan Garcia versus Teofemo Lopez is one of the most intriguing matchups in boxing today. Both fighters began their careers with almost unlimited potential. They are both two highly gifted athletes. However, sometimes their biggest strength is also their biggest weakness, because these fighters have been known to fight off impulse. Take Ryan Garcia, for example. No matter how many conditioning drills he does, it seems as though his coaches can't stop him from reverting back to what he loves doing. This is evidenced by his lackluster Philly shell and his habit of sometimes getting over-aggressive, dropping his hands, and squaring up with his chin in the air. However, Ryan Garcia has a get-out-of-jail-free card that often gets him out of trouble. Fighters like Javier Fortuna, Devin Haney, and Francisco Fonseca have all fallen victim to Ryan Garcia's left hook. He is able to rotate this punch so quickly that most people either don't see the punch coming or can't react to the amount of force he's able to generate off of the punch. It is really like a whip. However, against a fighter like Mario Barrios, it's clear that he's still effective and dangerous with his other punches. His reputation is just overshadowed by the amount of people he's knocked out with just his left hook. But I think in many ways, Ryan Garcia is misunderstood as a fighter, because while he is able to overwhelm his opponents with volume and turn over his punches quickly, I think there are many misconceptions about his speed. His footwork is not the most sophisticated that we've seen. Sometimes he's quite flat-footed. This in many ways is one of the effective ways that he's able to generate power, but I would argue that he has significantly worse footwork than Teofemo Lopez. Briefly, Teofemo Lopez can shift stances almost seamlessly. He's better at cutting angles, his footwork is more fluid, and he knows how to use foot feints. Sometimes this is an act of showboating, and sometimes it's to cut the distance, but you will often see Teofemo Lopez raise his leg off the ground to reposition and then attack. And while this is somewhat unconventional, unless you're a fighter like Roy Jones Jr. or Anderson Silva, I think that Teofemo Lopez is actually a far more complete fighter than Ryan Garcia. No, I don't expect everyone to agree with that. I think offensively, Ryan Garcia probably hits harder and is faster. But styles make fights, and I think that this matchup will be dangerous for Ryan Garcia. However, both of these fighters have careers that are riddled with inconsistencies. For Teofemo Lopez, he has ascended to the highest level of the sport and defeated fighters like Vasily Lomachenko and Josh Taylor. But there are also many moments where he doesn't fully rise to the occasion. He's had some closely contested fights and is recently coming off a loss against Shakur Stevenson. Now, before I go on, I need to point something out. There is no shame losing to Shakur Stevenson. I think if he continues on his current trajectory, he might one day be the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. Statistically, he has the best defense in boxing. While his style might not always be the most appealing for casual fans, there is no denying that he has immeasurable potential. I don't see very many fighters in the surrounding divisions beating Shakur Stevenson. I think he beats Devin Haney. I think he takes out Gervonta Davis. He beats Ryan Garcia. He beats Pitbull. He beats Lamont Roach. And of course, Barrios. I think he would have to go all the way up to the 154-pound division before anyone gave him any serious problems. I can see a very interesting match against Boots Ennis. But Shakur is gifted visually. He has some of the best eyes in boxing and can see all the punches coming. So I don't actually take Teofemo's loss too much into consideration when evaluating this fight against Ryan Garcia. It's a factor, but I don't think it should really dissuade you from thinking that Teofemo will win the fight. Everyone would lose to Shakur. He just has better timing, and that beats speed every day. It's worth comparing Teofemo Lopez's loss to Shakur Stevenson to Terence Crawford's win over Canelo Alvarez and Spence. People say that Errol Spence was out of his prime and was affected by the car accident, but I don't think that tells the whole story. People say that Canelo Alvarez was out of his prime and had a lot of mileage on the clock, and while that might be true, Terence Crawford was still older than him. These Crawford wins appeared so one-sided because it was a bad stylistic matchup for Canelo and Spence. He made them look ineffective because he was just that good. I think Terence Crawford and Shakur's wins are so impressive because he makes it look that easy. But it doesn't mean those fighters are washed or completely trash. If you want to describe the greatness of a fighter like Terence Crawford, you have to say that a fighter like Canelo was elite. Otherwise, the win isn't impressive if you think those guys suck. You can be frustrated with the level of opposition that a fighter like Canelo has chosen in recent years. That is perfectly valid criticism, but I think boxing fans have a real issue writing off anyone that isn't their favorite fighter. My broader point is that I don't think this is the end of Teofemo Lopez, and there is no reason that a loss to Shakur Stevenson should define your entire career. Teofemo Lopez is more than dangerous enough for Ryan Garcia. I think by all accounts, Ryan Garcia has the worst resume when compared to Teofemo Lopez. He doesn't have that signature win over someone like Lomachenko, and people forget, but the Josh Taylor win was incredibly impressive. You can argue that Ryan has his fight against Devin Haney, but even if we factor in that no contest as a win, I still don't think it's as impressive as Teofemo Lopez's resume. For reference, if a fighter like Lomachenko had fought Ryan Garcia back in the day, he would probably dog walk him, simply because of the differences in their footwork. And Loma's just one of the names on Teo's resume. On paper though, this is actually quite a close fight. So then we start to consider who has the better chin in boxing. Well, Ryan Garcia was dropped by Luke Campbell, he was dropped by Romero, and completely dismantled and knocked out by Gervonta Tank Davis. In addition to having a somewhat vulnerable chin, Ryan Garcia has shown that he is vulnerable to the body on multiple occasions. But Teofemo Lopez has also been down. There was a flash knockdown during his loss to George Kambosos Jr. I can understand arguments the other way around, but I personally think that Teofemo Lopez has the better chin, better punch resistance overall. As I mentioned, he's also more defensively responsible overall. Even though it might seem as though he has his hands down, he's better at defense, and his crossguard is better than Ryan, forgetting to hold up his hands. Now, Ryan looked really impressive against Barrios, but I think that most people would look impressive against Barrios. Not to take away anything from the legend, but an incredibly old Manny Pacquiao effectively beat up Mario Barrios also. Ryan Garcia's career is inconsistent too. He's shown the ability to get distracted. Even though some of the antics before the Devin Haney fight were all an act to get in Devin Haney's head, it's apparent that Ryan Garcia has a focus problem. His coaches have subtly implied or outright said that he is incredibly hard to manage, and his father, who does a lot of the coaching, is kind of stuck with him. But that guy comes with his own baggage too. Ryan Garcia has had a lot of personal struggles. I think the impact of fame has decimated his mental health. He also functions very much as a content creator. Ryan can still rise to the occasion though. He's proven it before. He's able to showcase moments of brilliance when he really locks in. Let's be clear, Ryan Garcia and Teofemo Lopez are both unhinged. This is an exaggerated example, but I always like to say that Ryan Garcia is always former drug addict child star crazy, and Teofemo Lopez is just authentic New York crazy. Like Teo is just a New Yorker on the street kind of guy. Ryan Garcia is more molded by his environment and the life of fame, where for Teofemo Lopez, this is just all he knows. An entire decade ago, Ryan Garcia turned pro, and he started his fighter journey pretty much at the age of 7 years old. Teofemo also has a lifetime of experience, starting to fight at the age of just 6 years old. I firmly believe that if the Ryan Garcia that lost to Rolly Romero shows up, Teo wins every time. If the Ryan Garcia that lost to Gervonta Tank Davis shows up, we actually have a more interesting, more competitive matchup. If Ryan is hesitant to throw, I don't think he stands much of a chance. I don't think he's patient enough to out-counter Teofemo Lopez. Also, in regards to Ryan Garcia's lack of defense, he can't get away with turning his back in this fight. He can't rely on the ref to just break them up. I think Teofemo Lopez will exploit angles better than Devin Haney, and if Ryan Garcia turns his back to him, he will hit him with a punch he can't see, square on the jaw. Ryan is the flashier fighter, but Teofemo Lopez has more dimensions to his game. I think that Teofemo Lopez would have multiple game plans. Yes, I understand the irony of this because against his fight against Shakur Stevenson, it seemed like he only had one gear. But in general, I think that Teofemo would have a plan A, plan B, and a plan C. And I think that Ryan Garcia would just have a plan A and maybe a plan B. Teofemo is more adaptable. I think he learned a lot from his mistakes in the George Kambosos fight. And after learning from that loss, I think that he is now a more patient fighter than he once was. But I can't say exactly the same for Ryan. Teofemo Lopez subtly telegraphs his punches, but I think that all the subtle movements that Shakur Stevenson was able to pick up on, I don't think Ryan Garcia will be as good at. When Teofemo Lopez dramatically jumps in and lunges at Ryan, I don't know if Ryan will have a good answer. What happens when Teofemo Lopez gets in a rhythm? If Ryan gets hit clean while Teofemo Lopez lunges in, I don't know if he has great powers of recovery. My official prediction is that if Teofemo Lopez can make it through the first 4 rounds without getting hurt, without taking that much damage, then he will win the entire fight. It's a close fight, but I see Teofemo winning a decision, probably 7 rounds to 5. It's true that Ryan Garcia has a 2-inch height advantage. Teofemo Lopez is only 5'8". Ryan Garcia also has a reach advantage. Teo has a 68.5-inch reach, while Ryan has a 70-inch reach. However, I don't think in this particular matchup it makes that much of a difference. I believe that Teofemo Lopez will be able to cut angles better, and as a result, cut the distance just fine. These fighters are just a year apart in age. At the age of 27 and 28, it's arguable as fighters that they are both in their primes. Who do you see winning this fight? Will this fight actually get made? My official prediction is a Teofemo Lopez win by decision. When faced with adversity, Teofemo Lopez will respond better. Alright, get out of here. Thanks for watching.